Welcome! Today, we're diving into a mystery that drives pretty much every social media manager crazy. Why do some posts absolutely take off while others just disappear? We're going to look at the science of what makes visual content connect with people.
I mean, think about it, right? A university posts two pictures on the exact same day. One gets thousands of likes, comments, shares. It's the talk of the campus. The other one? Crickets. Maybe a few likes from people in the office. It feels like a total lottery, but what if it's not just luck?
For the folks trying to market these universities, this whole thing is more than just a headache. It's a really high-stakes game. You get it right, and you're building a community, connecting with potential students. You get it wrong, and it feels like you're just shouting into an empty room.
And the stakes are higher than ever. Younger people live online, so universities have had to jump into that crowded digital space to compete for their attention. A good social media game is absolutely crucial now for everything: recruitment, branding, you name it. The only problem is most are kind of flying blind, without a real playbook for what actually works.
So, what if we could swap out all that guesswork for actual science? Well, a recent study did exactly that. A group of researchers decided to stop guessing and start analyzing to see if they could actually crack the visual code behind what makes a post engaging.
And when I say they analyzed, I mean they really went for it. This wasn't a small sample. They gathered and analyzed 1,200, that's 1,200 different Facebook images from top universities. This was a serious deep dive.
And to make sure their findings were solid, they looked at 24 top-tier universities across 3 different English-speaking countries: the US, the UK, and Australia. The idea was to find patterns that weren't just a fluke, to see if there are some universal rules to this engagement game.
So, how did they pull this off? You can think of it like a digital detective story. First, they collected all the images, their evidence. Then, they broke each image down, identifying 48 specific visual features. We're talking everything from the main colors to the emotions on people's faces. And finally, they unleashed machine learning algorithms to sift through all that data and find the clues that actually pointed to success.
And after all of that digital detective work, it totally paid off. The AI found 3 critical groups of features, 3 key clues, let's call them, that consistently showed up in the most successful posts.
All right, clue number 1 is all about color. It turns out images that really lean into a university's official colors, or even just have a strong, visually pleasing color scheme, do way better. It makes sense, right? Color creates an instant brand connection and just makes the post pop. Clue number 2 gets into the human stuff: emotion. Images that scream joy, happiness, and that feeling of community are basically engagement magnets. Shots of students celebrating, working together. That stuff just resonates with people on a whole other level. And the final clue comes down to identity and a sense of place. When a post features those iconic, recognizable things like a famous campus building or the university logo, it taps right into school pride. These symbols are like a shortcut to making people feel connected.
Okay, but this is where it gets really fascinating, because it's not a one-size-fits-all formula. The power of these clues actually changes depending on the country. Get this. Showing the university logo was a good thing in the UK, but it actually had a negative impact in the US and Australia. Even crazier, showing joyful faces worked great in Australia and the UK, but in the United States, it was linked to lower engagement. It just goes to show you, cultural context is everything.
So you might be thinking, how could anyone possibly notice all these subtle patterns across 1,200 images? Well, a person couldn't. The detective behind this whole investigation wasn't a person at all. It was AI.
Specifically, they used a technique called supervised learning. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's like training a rookie detective. You feed the algorithm thousands of old cases. In this case, images that you've already labeled as high, medium, or low engagement. Over time, the algorithm starts to learn the patterns on its own, figuring out which clues lead to a win. As the researchers themselves put it, AI gives us this incredible ability to look at a huge, messy pile of visual data and pull out clear, useful insights from it. It's about turning millions of pixels into a real strategy, telling you not just what worked in the past, but helping you predict what's going to work next.
And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway here. We can finally start moving beyond just winging it. With this kind of analysis, social media stops feeling like a lottery and starts looking like a science.
For any university, or really any organization, the practical uses for this are massive. It means you can build a content strategy that's based on actual data. You can figure out exactly what visual triggers work for your specific audience, and then optimize your images to get the most interaction. It's about switching from relying on a gut feeling to using methods that can actually predict success.
So this all leads to a final, really thought-provoking question. As this AI gets smarter and smarter at telling us exactly what to post, what colors to use, what emotions to show, what objects to feature, it kind of starts to blur the lines of creativity. If an algorithm is perfecting our content for us, who's the real author? It's a pretty wild thing to think about as we head into this new age of data-driven creativity.